Hello, Patriots. I'm Lee Watts, and this is Patriot Point, your source for Kentucky news and analysis from a conservative, Christian, and common sense point of view. Well, there seems to be a whole lot of talk about pardons here very recently, so we're going to be looking about a new Kentucky law which is up for a vote dealing with the power for the governor to give pardons. We're also going to talk about how Biden, in his very last hour in office, pardoned a Kentucky politician who is a convicted felon. We're also going to talk about how the Biden pardons could legally be revoked. Let's look at a few things about these pardons. First of all, you'll notice that Biden gave a bunch of preemptive pardons. Let me ask you a question. What are these people being pardoned for? Usually to be a pardon, you have to actually have done something. I looked up for a biblical example about pardons, and there's a lot of pardons in the Bible, but every single time the person had committed a crime, and that's why they were being pardoned. I think it should be noted, and everybody write this down wherever you write stuff down, that he gave 5 pardons to his family, in addition to the one he already gave Hunter, bringing the total to 6. And all of his family pardons go back to, specifically, 2014. What is there in the Biden family history that he wants them specifically to be not able to be criminally charged from 2014? Don't know the answer, got a few guesses, and everybody write that down in case it comes out later. Now, of course, the Democrats are perfectly fine with all of this. However, they didn't like the idea of preemptive pardons or pardons for specifically your family members back in 2020. Trump didn't do this, but he had thought about it. And the Democrats didn't seem to like preemptive pardons back then. Notice what they said back in 2020.
The president's reportedly asking his staff whether he can issue preemptive pardons for himself, his family members, Rudy Giuliani. There's a simple answer. No. No, Mr. President. That would be a gross abuse of the presidential pardon authority.
Do you think that those pardons are appropriate? Do you think they would be legal?
I don't think they are appropriate at all.
Is there an innocent explanation for someone to seek preemptive pardons for family members? Would you do that if you knew you were innocent and just worried about outside forces?
The answer to that is going to be no. And, if you haven't done anything wrong, you sit there and go, what do you need a preemptive pardon for?
It begs the question, why is there a need for a pardon here in the first place? People who've done nothing wrong do not need to be pardoned. And to me, it would raise flags for other prosecutors and other investigators, state prosecutors, not bound by the pardon, to take a close look.
They say that they haven't done anything wrong. Well, why would you be pardoning them preemptively if you didn't think they might have done something wrong?
Have you ever heard of somebody getting a preemptive pardon who was innocent of all crime? Who's just an innocent person? Have you ever heard of that? Just somebody getting a blanket pardon and they're an innocent person?
But no, here it's an effort not only to prospectively pardon people for things they have not yet been charged with and may never be charged with, but also it's the president's own family. It's people that have been covering up for the president in addition to his own family.
So once again, we see the Democrats changing their tune completely based on who is actually giving a pardon and when. Well, now let's look at a new law that is up for a vote here in Kentucky that directly affects a governor's ability to give a pardon or not. And that is Senate Bill number 126, proposed by Kentucky State Senator Kristen McDaniel. And according to this bill, then the governor's power to give pardons would stop 30 days before a gubernatorial election, and it would not go back into effect until Inauguration Day. Now, really, the idea behind this is sometimes you get a governor on their way out. They're not going to be in office anymore. The election's coming up. They'll just pardon a whole bunch of people on their way out the door, and it usually makes a ton of people mad. And it's done for political reasons most of the time. So this law would say, listen, before the election and up until the new Inauguration Day, the governor has no power to pardon. Personally, I think that's a good idea, that it's Senate Bill number 126. Personally, I would take it a little farther. Why in the world should the governor or the president have the power to pardon a convicted criminal? This is a violation of the constitutional principle of the separation of powers. Here you have the executive branch that is taking the power of the judicial branch. The president or the governor They're not the one who was at the court case to hear the evidence. They're not the victim in the crime. The victim had their day in court, had to go through all of that, had the offender convicted, and yet they're like, even though you are guilty, you can completely just walk away for free. I think this is a travesty of justice, so I don't think they really have this, but they didn't ask me whether they should have this ability or not when they wrote the Constitution. So it does exist, so I think this should be really gotten away of. It's a carryover from the days of kings and nobility when they had the power to pardon all of their friends from many crimes. But Senate Bill 126 would take away a Kentucky governor's ability to pardon 30 days before an election up to the day of inauguration, a good step in the right direction. Now let's talk about a Kentucky politician who, on the very last day of Biden's presidency, the last day and the last hour in office, Biden issued a whole bunch of pardons. He issued more than 72,000 pardons, including pardoning cop killers and other things like that. And he also pardoned a Kentucky politician, a convicted felon, a guy by the name of Jerry Lundergan. You may recognize him because a few years ago, he was convicted for sending more than $200,000 illegally to the campaign of his daughter, Allison Lundergan Grimes, who at that time was running to replace Mitch McConnell as a U.S. Senator. So he sent her campaign illegally more than $200,000. He was found guilty of that, convicted. However, Biden has given him a presidential pardon. By the way, just thought I'd throw this in. This guy was twice the chairman of the Democratic Party of Kentucky. Now, let's get to our last issue, which is how is it possible to actually revoke the pardons that Joe Biden has given on his way out the door? I believe, yes, there is. However, it'd have to be done in a very quick and specific way. I think the only way this could legally be done is if they were to take Joe Biden to court and say he is not mentally competent when he was issuing these pardons. Therefore, the pardons should not be standing. Of course, if they want to do that, they would have to challenge this quickly to do a cognitive test. Because if they wait, they can say, well, he may not pass the test now, but he would have been fine back then. So it'd have to be done quickly. I do not expect this to be done. However, I think it should be done. And if it were to be done, it'd have to be done incredibly quickly. Really, this power to pardon ought to be thrown out the window. So that's a little bit about what's going on in Kentucky politics, felons being pardoned, and a new law which might change the way pardons happen in Kentucky. So until next week, Patriots, I'm Lee Watts for Patriot Point, reminding you that liberty is not a spectator sport.